Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will stir every fiber of your heart. It's about a young woman who was forgotten by her own family, considered a dead weight, and a powerful man imprisoned in the shadows of a past that wouldn't let him live. Two completely different worlds that meet in a moment of absolute desperation. A marriage without love. Just a cold agreement. But fate had very different plans for them. This is the beautiful love story between the widowed duke and the forgotten daughter that nobody wanted. If you love stories of overcoming intense romances and endings that warm the soul, subscribe now to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any emotion. Leave your like if you believe in the power of true love, and in the comments tell me, have you ever felt invisible in life? Open your heart and let this story transform you. Before we continue, check if you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. The February heat punished the city of Vesuras mercilessly in the Paraíba Valley that afternoon of 1878. Amelia Novaes wiped the sweat from her face with her already dirty apron while scrubbing the floor of the main room of her aunt and uncle's house. Her knees ached on the rough floorboards. At 25 years old, she knew intimately the meaning of being invisible. Worse than that, she knew exactly what it was like to be seen merely as a nuisance, a heavy burden that nobody wanted to carry. Aunt Gertrude's shrill voice cut through the stifling air like a whip. "Amelia, where is that lazy girl? The food won't make itself, girl. I have visitors arriving in 2 hours and you're there, dragging yourself around like a slug." "Coming," Amelia responded quickly, getting up with effort. Her joints cracked in protest. 4 years living as a dependent in her aunt and uncle's house in Vesuras had taught her a valuable lesson. Obeying quickly hurt less than hesitating. She entered the suffocating kitchen, where the wood stove transformed the environment into a true inferno. Her cousin Beatrice was sitting at the table, fanning herself with an imported fan while eating guava paste with cheese. "Amelia, could you prepare that cornmeal cake I like so much?" Beatrice spoke with a honeyed voice, but her eyes carried the usual contempt. "After all, what else are you good for in this house?" Amelia bit her lip, swallowing the bitter words that wanted to escape. Beatrice was only 19 years old. She was considered pretty by local society, with her fair skin, curly hair, and delicate manners, everything that Amelia was not. Amelia's brown skin betrayed the heritage of her mother, a free woman, born of enslaved parents. Her father, a Portuguese merchant of modest means, never managed to make society forget that detail, even though he had prospered in business. When Amelia's father died 4 years ago, victim of a sudden fever, her half-siblings on her father's side, children of a first marriage, quickly divided the modest inheritance and expelled her from the house where she had grown up. "You have no right to anything here," they said with calculated coldness. "Your mother already died years ago. Look for her family if you want a roof." But her mother's family didn't really want her either. Aunt Gertrude took her in only out of Christian obligation, as she made a point of reminding her every day, "Food doesn't fall from the sky, girl. If you're going to live here for free, you're going to work for every piece of bread you eat." And work was exactly what Amelia did. From 5 in the morning, when she lit the stove, until late at night, when she washed the last dinner dishes, she cooked, cleaned, washed, ironed, sewed, and did everything that 3 servants should do. But she was treated as if she did absolutely nothing. She slept in a tiny room at the back of the house, smaller than the pantry, on a thin mattress where she could feel every floorboard through the worn fabric. She had no decent clothes, just 2 patched dresses that she herself mended by candlelight when everyone was already asleep. "Are you daydreaming again?" Aunt Gertrude's voice brought her abruptly back to reality. "Useless girl. You should have already started preparing dinner. We have Commander Augusto and his family coming today. I want everything to be perfect. Don't embarrass me in front of important people." Amelia hurried to start the preparations. Her hands moved with automatic efficiency, peeling potatoes, seasoning the chicken, preparing the polenta. While she worked, her mind escaped to distant places. She remembered when her mother was still alive, the days when she accompanied her to the market, when she learned about medicinal herbs, healing roots, leaves that relieved pain. Her mother had a special gift. People came from far away to seek her natural remedies, her prayers, her powerful teas. "One day you're going to need this, my daughter," her mother would say while teaching Amelia to identify each plant, each preparation, each secret passed down from generation to generation. "Knowledge is the only inheritance that no one can steal from you. Keep it in your heart." How right her mother was. That knowledge was all Amelia possessed now, but it wasn't something she could flaunt or practice openly. Aunt Gertrude strictly forbade any witchcraft, as she called the ancestral knowledge Amelia had inherited. "In this house, we are true Catholics, good people," she declared pompously, although she didn't hesitate to seek out healers when she was sick. Dinner was served punctually at 7 in the evening. Amelia ate her leftovers in the kitchen, standing up, as always, after everyone had finished and praised the food, not knowing who had actually prepared it. It was always like this, always the same cruel routine. She watched through the half-open door, as the family gathered at the table, laughing, talking, planning parties and trips, a bright future of which she would never be a part. "I heard that the Coffee Duke lost his wife 2 years ago," commented Uncle Sebastian, wiping his mouth with the embroidered napkin. "They say the man's daughter is very sick, withering away little by little like a flower without water. The doctors don't know what to do." "What a terrible tragedy," sighed Aunt Gertrude, although her tone showed no genuine compassion. "Such a rich man, so powerful, and he can't save his own daughter. They say he's already brought doctors from Rio de Janeiro, but none could figure out what the girl has. The Buena Esperanza estate is the largest coffee producer in the region," continued Sebastian thoughtfully. "Vicente Albuquerque de Menezes is one of the richest men in the Paraíba Valley. But what good is all that wealth if he can't buy his daughter's health? Money doesn't bring happiness, my friend." Amelia felt a pang of true compassion. She knew what it was to suffer, but she couldn't imagine the pain of a father watching his daughter wither away. She continued washing the dishes in silence, letting the conversation flow in the background like a distant river. That night, lying on her thin and uncomfortable mattress, Amelia looked at the moisture-stained ceiling and allowed herself to dream. She dreamed of a different life, where she wasn't just the unwanted niece, the extra mouth to feed, the weight everyone carried with reluctance. She dreamed of a place where her knowledge would be valued, where she would be seen as a complete person, not as half a human being. But dreams were all she had, just empty dreams in the darkness of night. Meanwhile, many kilometers away, at the imposing Buena Esperanza estate, Vicente Albuquerque de Menezes couldn't sleep. He was sitting beside his daughter Isabella's bed, watching the pale face of the 9-year-old girl. Isabella coughed weakly at regular intervals, each cough seeming to suck a little more life from that fragile little body. The girl should be running through the fields, playing with dolls, laughing non-stop like other children her age. Instead, Isabella spent most of her days confined to her room, fighting against a mysterious illness that no doctor could diagnose or cure. She had constant fever, coughs that left her exhausted, and was getting thinner and thinner, despite Vicente ensuring she ate the best foods. The most recent doctor, come directly from Rio de Janeiro, with impressive credentials and an irritating air of superiority, had declared 3 weeks ago, "My Lord Duke, I did everything that modern science allows. I examined the girl completely. All I can say is that she has weak lungs and a debilitated body. I recommend absolute rest, fresh air, and that you prepare yourself for the worst. Nature will take its course. Prepare for the worst. The words echoed in Vicente's mind like an inevitable death sentence. He had already lost Clarice, his beloved wife, 2 years ago. She died of puerperal fever shortly after giving birth to Isabella, consumed by an infection that no doctor could control. Vicente still remembered holding her hand while she burned with fever, imploring the heavens for a miracle that never came. And now Isabella, the only piece of Clarice that remained to him, was slowly slipping through his fingers. Vicente was 37 years old, but he felt like a man of 60. The last 2 years had been an endless succession of doctors, expensive treatments, raised hopes followed by crushing disappointments. He had transformed the estate into one of the most prosperous in the entire region. His coffee fields stretched as far as the eye could see, producing the finest beans. But what good was all that accumulated wealth if he couldn't save his only daughter? Papa. Isabella's weak voice brought Vicente back to immediate reality. I'm here, my princess. Vicente took the girl's small, warm hand. My throat hurts again and I'm so hot. I know, my daughter. I know. Vicente dipped a cloth in the basin of fresh water beside the bed, passing it gently over her face. You're going to get better, I promise. Papa is going to find a way to cure you. But as he said those words, Vicente wondered if he was lying to his daughter or to himself. How many empty promises had he already made? How many false hopes had he created? He spent the whole night there, as he spent most nights since Isabella got sick, watching each difficult breath, each painful cough. At dawn, Isabella finally fell asleep, exhausted from the constant struggle. Vicente went down to the study, where he found his mother-in-law, Donna Margarida, already awake and drinking coffee. And as always, how was her night? Margarida asked, although she already knew the answer from her son-in-law's tired and dejected face. Bad. She's getting worse day after day. I can feel I'm losing her, Margarida. Vicente poured himself strong coffee, but not even the caffeine could drive away the deep exhaustion he felt in his bones. Donna Margarida was 58 years old, with completely white hair pulled back in a severe bun. She had been living at the estate since Clarice died, insisting that she needed to take care of her granddaughter. In truth, Vicente suspected she simply couldn't stay, away from the last living link with her dead daughter. Margarida's pain was palpable, present in every gesture, every look at Isabella. You need to seriously consider what Father Antonio suggested last week, said Margarida, choosing her words with delicate care. We're not going to discuss that again. Vicente's voice was firm but tired. I already said no. Father Antonio, the vicar of the local parish and a longtime friend of the family, had made an unusual suggestion during a recent visit. During a conversation after Sunday Mass, he casually mentioned that he knew a young woman who had deep knowledge of natural medicine, healing herbs, and traditional treatments passed down from generation to generation. I know you've already tried all the available licensed doctors, the priest said carefully. Perhaps it's time to consider different paths. The science of books doesn't always have all the answers we need. Sometimes God works through simple hands. Vicente had rejected the idea immediately and vehemently. He was a modern man, educated in the capital, who firmly believed in science and the progress of medicine. Healers, herbal teas, and folk remedies. All of that seemed like backward superstition to him, the stuff of ignorant, uneducated people. He wasn't going to subject his daughter to charlatanism, but now, sitting in his luxurious study while his only daughter withered away upstairs, Vicente was beginning to question his own certainties. What if the doctors were wrong? What if the science he valued so much simply didn't have answers for this specific case? What if there's something the doctors don't know? Margarida insisted, her voice breaking slightly. "Vicente, I lost my daughter. I don't want to lose my granddaughter too. I'll do anything, anything to save her." "Do you think I want to lose my daughter?" Vicente's voice came out harsher than he intended. He sighed deeply, running his hands over his tired face. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell. I just don't know if I believe in these things about healers and home remedies. I'm not asking you to believe blindly." Margarita leaned forward. "I'm asking you to try for Isabella's sake. What do you have to lose that you're not already losing?" The words hung in the heavy air of the study. For Isabella's sake. Vicente would do absolutely anything for his daughter, anything at all without exception. What exactly did Father Antonio suggest? Vicente asked finally, hating every word that came out of his mouth. Margarita took a deep breath, as if she were about to jump off a cliff. "He knows a young woman in Vasuras, daughter of a deceased Portuguese merchant. She currently lives with her aunt and uncle. Apparently her mother was known for her gifts of healing, much sought after in the region. The young woman completely inherited that knowledge. She learned everything since she was very young. And why isn't this miraculous young woman healing everyone in Vasuras then?" Vicente asked skeptically. "If she's that good, she should be famous, because the family doesn't allow her to practice openly. They consider these practices inappropriate, even shameful. But Father Antonio firmly believes she could help Isabella if given the opportunity." Vicente remained silent for a long moment that seemed to stretch for hours. It was madness, complete madness, to be considering this. But then he thought of Isabella, of her big, scared eyes, of her difficult breathing, of how the girl was slipping away from him a little more each passing day. He thought of Clarice, of how he had promised her in her last moments that he would take care of their daughter, that he would always protect her. "What are the exact conditions?" Vicente asked, hating every word that came out of his mouth. "What does this family want in return?" "The young woman has absolutely nothing," Margarita explained carefully. "She's treated like a servant in her aunt and uncle's house, like an unwanted dependent. Father Antonio suggested that perhaps you could bring her here, perhaps as Isabella's governess, someone to take care of her full time." "A stranger to take care of my daughter?" Vicente shook his head. "A complete stranger living under my roof. A stranger with knowledge that can save her life," Margarita corrected firmly. "Vicente, what do you really have to lose? If it doesn't work, you send her back. But what if it works? What if this young woman can really help Isabella?" Vicente looked out the window at the coffee fields stretching to the horizon, his empire built with sweat and determination. All of that meant nothing without Isabella. Absolutely nothing. "I'm going to talk to Father Antonio today," he said finally, his voice heavy with resignation. "I want to meet this young woman before making any final decision. I need to look into her eyes and see if I can trust her with my daughter's life." 2 days later, Father Antonio arrived at the Buena Esperanza estate in his old but well-maintained cart. He was a man of 50 years, with hair beginning to turn completely grey and gentle eyes that had witnessed much human suffering throughout decades of dedicated priesthood. Vicente received him in the study, offering fresh coffee and a comfortable chair beside the fireplace. "Thank you for receiving me so promptly, Duke," said the priest, settling in. "I know my suggestion must have seemed very unusual, perhaps even offensive." "Unusual is a delicate word for what I'm considering, Father." Vicente poured 2 generous glasses of imported cognac. He needed something stronger than coffee for this conversation. "Tell me more about this young woman. Who is she, really?" Father Antonio took a sip of cognac before responding, organizing his thoughts. "Amelia Novaes is a young woman of good character, hard-working, formally educated. Her father made absolutely certain that she learned to read and write fluently, something rare for young women of her condition. She knows the sacred scriptures, comes to Mass regularly when her aunt and uncle allow it. She's a young woman of faith, but there's a catch, isn't there? Vicente knew that tone of voice. There always was one. Well, she's mixed race, the priest said directly. Her mother was a free-born woman of African and Portuguese descent, known for her exceptional healing gifts. When her father died under difficult circumstances, Amelia's half-siblings rejected her completely. Her aunt and uncle took her in out of Christian charity, but they don't treat her with dignity. She lives practically as an unpaid servant. Vicente stood up, walking to the window. Outside, the slaves worked in the coffee fields under the harsh sun. Slavery still existed, although Vicente knew its days were numbered, but prejudices, those lasted much longer than any institution. "And you really believe she can help my daughter?" Vicente asked without turning around. "You're not offering me false hopes?" "I believe that the medicine of European books is not the only form of medicine that exists in this world, Duke. I personally saw Amelia's mother cure things that licensed doctors declared completely impossible. I saw it with my own eyes, and Amelia learned everything from her. Every secret, every technique." Vicente sat back down, staring at the priest. "What are the exact conditions the family has established? How much do they want in payment?" "Amelia's aunt and uncle are willing to release her permanently, but they want something specific in return." The priest hesitated visibly. "They want you to marry her." Vicente almost dropped his glass. "What? Are you joking?" "I know how it sounds, Duke, but consider it from their point of view. Amelia is 25 years old. She's considered too old for marriage by society. She's mixed race, without any dowry, without real prospects. They see her as a heavy burden they'll never be able to get rid of. This is the only chance to be rid of her with some apparent dignity. They want me to buy a wife as if she were cattle at market." Vicente's voice was loaded with deep indignation. "They want you to give a rejected and forgotten young woman a chance to have a true home, to have dignity and respect." The priest faced him firmly, without averting his gaze. "And in return, she can try to save your daughter's life. It doesn't have to be a real marriage in the complete sense. It can be just on paper, a practical arrangement. No one needs to know the private details." Vicente stood up again, pacing back and forth in the study like a caged animal. Get married again. He had solemnly sworn that he would never replace Clarice. Her room was still intact, preserved exactly as she had left it, like a sacred shrine. He didn't love another woman, didn't want to love another woman. His heart belonged eternally to Clarice. But this wouldn't be about romantic love, he tried to convince himself. It would simply be about saving Isabella, and for his daughter he would do anything, literally anything. "I need to meet her first," Vicente said finally, his voice heavy. "I'm not going to make such an important decision without at least looking into her eyes. Of course, completely understandable. I can bring her here tomorrow if you prefer, or we can go together to Vasuras. Bring her here tomorrow morning," Vicente decided. "I want to see her, speak with her personally, evaluate her character before even considering this madness." Father Antonio nodded, rising to leave. "And Vicente, I know this seems completely insane, seems like total madness, but sometimes God works in absolutely mysterious ways. Perhaps this is exactly the answer to your desperate prayers." After the priest left, Vicente slowly climbed up to Isabella's room. The girl was awake, leafing through an illustrated book of fairy tales that Vicente had bought on one of his trips to Rio de Janeiro. "Papa, look at this drawing of an enchanted castle." Isabella showed the page with weak enthusiasm, her eyes momentarily brightening. "It's so beautiful. Do you think castles like this really exist?" Vicente sat carefully on the edge of the bed, looking at the colorful illustration. "Maybe they exist in distant places. And one day, when you're completely well, we'll travel together and look for real castles, I promise." "Really, Papa?" Isabella began to cough, the fit making her thin little body tremble violently. "Really and truly." Vicente held his daughter until the cough passed. feeling his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. "Really, my princess, I promise with all my heart." It was a promise he didn't know if he could keep, but if marrying a stranger gave Isabella even a small chance of seeing that day, then Vicente would do it without hesitation. For his daughter's sake, he would do absolutely anything. Amelia was in the yard washing clothes when Father Antonio arrived the next morning. She saw him talking seriously with Aunt Gertrude on the porch, and her heart raced. There were rarely visitors so early, and when the priest came, it usually meant something very serious was happening. "Amelia, come here immediately," Aunt Gertrude called, and there was something different in her voice. It almost seemed like hope. Amelia dried her wet, soapy hands on her worn apron, approaching cautiously, keeping her eyes down, as she had always been taught to do in the presence of important people. "My child, Father Antonio began gently. As you know, the Coffee Duke's daughter is gravely ill. The doctors can't help her. I told the Duke about your knowledge of herbs and natural cures. He would very much like to meet you personally." Amelia raised her eyes, surprised and confused. "Me, Father? But I'm not a licensed doctor. I don't have a diploma in anything. How can I help someone so important? You have valuable knowledge that can make a difference, knowledge that doctors don't possess. The Duke is willing to make a special arrangement," Aunt Gertrude interrupted, clearly unable to contain herself any longer. "Duke Vicente is willing to marry you, Amelia. It's an opportunity you would never have otherwise, an opportunity that won't come again." The words hit Amelia like lightning on a clear day. Marry a man she had never even seen once. A duke, no less? "I don't understand," she murmured, her head spinning. Father Antonio explained with infinite patience. "It would be a marriage of convenience, Amelia. You would go to the Buena Esperanza estate and take care of the girl Isabella full-time. You would try to help her with all your knowledge. In return, you would have a real home, a respectable name in society, security for the rest of your life, and I would no longer be a heavy burden for this family," Amelia completed quietly, finally understanding the complete situation. "You were never a burden," the priest lied gently, but both knew the truth. Aunt Gertrude didn't bother to pretend or hide. "It's the best and only chance you'll have in life, girl. A young woman of your age, of your social and racial condition. Don't be completely stupid to refuse an opportunity like this. You know you won't have another." Amelia looked at her hands, calloused. From constant work, at the wet and dirty apron, at the yard where she had spent countless hours working under the sun. She looked at the house, where she wasn't wanted at all, where every day was a painful reminder that she was left over, unwanted by everyone. And then she thought of a sick and suffering child, a girl of only 9 years fighting to survive. If her knowledge could really help, wouldn't it be her duty to at least try? "When does he want to meet me?" Amelia asked, her voice surprisingly firm for someone so scared. "Right now, if you're willing." "We can go immediately," Father Antonio replied. Amelia looked at Aunt Gertrude, who waved her hand impatiently. "Go change. Wear your mass dress, the best you have, and do something decent with that wild hair. You can't appear before a duke looking like a beggar." 20 minutes later, Amelia was sitting rigidly in Father Antonio's cart, wearing her only remotely decent dress, a faded moss-green one that had been her mother's decades ago. She had pulled her curly hair into a tight bun, her hands trembling visibly with nervousness. "You don't need to be so afraid," said the priest softly, as he guided the horse along the dusty road. "Duke Vicente is a good man at heart. Severe, perhaps, formal, certainly, but fundamentally fair. And remember, there's no absolute obligation. If you don't want to accept, you can simply go back." "Go back to what exactly?" Amelia thought bitterly, but said nothing aloud. She would go back to the same life as always, to being treated as less than nothing for the rest of her days. The journey to the Buena Esperanza estate took almost 3 hours under the scorching sun. When they finally arrived, Amelia, couldn't help being completely impressed. The property was absolutely immense, stretching as far as her eyes could see. The big house was magnificent, painted impeccable white, with 2 extensive wings and a meticulously maintained front garden. In the background, she could see the endless coffee fields stretching across the gentle hills. A foreman came to receive them politely, leading them into the cool interior of the house. Amelia had never been in such a grand place in her entire life. The floors were waxed boards that shone like mirrors. There was solid jacaranda furniture, heavy imported velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers that caught the light. It was a world completely different from everything she knew or had experienced. "Wait in the parlour, please," the foreman said politely. "The Duke will be down in a moment." Amelia and Father Antonio sat in upholstered chairs that seemed to be worth more than everything Amelia had possessed in her entire life combined. She kept her hands firmly crossed in her lap, trying not to look as displaced and scared as she really felt. Then the heavy wooden doors opened, and Vicente Albuquerque de Menezes entered the room with decisive steps. Amelia raised her eyes timidly and felt the air completely leave her lungs. He was tall, imposing, with broad shoulders and the bearing of someone deeply accustomed to commanding and being obeyed. He had dark hair with some silver threads at the temples, deep brown eyes that seemed to carry all the weight of the world, and a severe expression that invited no familiarity. He wore impeccable formal clothes, completely dark. He was also evaluating her carefully, his eyes running over her from head to toe, in a way that made Amelia blush intensely with embarrassment. Father Antonio, Vicente greeted with a grave and controlled voice. "This is Amelia Novaes, I presume." Amelia stood quickly, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered, as befitting someone of her position. "My Lord Duke," she murmured. "Please sit," Vicente ordered. He wasn't rude, but there was no warmth whatsoever in his words. There was a moment of extremely uncomfortable silence. Amelia could hear her own heart beating like a drum. "The priest told me about your knowledge of natural and traditional medicine," Vicente began directly. "Tell me about it in your own words." Amelia took a deep breath, trying to organize her jumbled thoughts. "My mother was a recognized healer in the region. She deeply knew the plants, the herbs, the roots with medicinal properties. She knew how to treat persistent fevers, chronic pains, various inflammations. I learned directly from her since I was very young. It was the only real legacy she left me. And do you honestly believe you can help my daughter when the best licensed doctors from Bahia and Rio de Janeiro have already completely failed?" Vicente's voice carried deep skepticism. "I don't know with absolute certainty, sir. I would need to examine the girl first, completely understand what ails her." Amelia finally raised her eyes, meeting his. "But if it's something that herbs and natural treatments can help, I will try with all my knowledge and dedication. The best doctors in Brazil have already tried and failed miserably," Vicente repeated, almost as if testing her reaction. "With all due respect, sir." Amelia felt an unexpected courage surge within her. Sometimes licensed doctors don't know absolutely everything. There are ancient knowledge that have been preserved outside European universities. Vicente raised an eyebrow, and Amelia feared she had been too bold, had crossed invisible boundaries. But then he spoke. "Do you completely understand the proposed terms? This would be a marriage in name only on paper. You would have your own separate room, your own private life. Your only real obligation would be to dedicatedly care for Isabella." "I understand perfectly, sir." "And if you can't help her? What if Isabella gets worse under your care? Then at least I will have honestly tried, sir. Which is infinitely more than I've done for anyone in the last 4 years of my life." Something passed quickly across Vicente's severe face. "Perhaps respect, perhaps just momentary curiosity. Would you like to meet Isabella before making your final decision?" Vicente asked, his voice softening only marginally. Amelia nodded, unable to trust her voice. Vicente stood and she followed. Father Antonio remained politely in the parlor. They climbed a wide and elegant staircase to the second floor. Vicente stopped before a white-painted door and turned to Amelia with a serious expression. "She's very weak today. Please don't tire her excessively." "I won't, I promise." Vicente carefully opened the door and entered. Amelia followed, her heart beating fast. The room was spacious and airy, with large open windows letting in the gentle breeze. But it was the bed that completely captured Amelia's attention. On it lay a small and frighteningly thin girl, sitting propped against stacked pillows, an illustrated book open in her lap. When she saw them enter, she raised large brown eyes, the same shade as her father's. "Isabella, we have a special visitor," Vicente said, his voice completely transformed, becoming soft and loving. "This is Miss Amelia." "Hello," said the girl with a slightly breathless voice, studying Amelia with honest, childlike curiosity. Amelia approached slowly, offering her gentlest and warmest smile. "Hello, Isabella. It's a true pleasure to meet you. Your father told me many good things. About you. Did you come to see my papa?" Isabella asked innocently. "Actually, I came especially to see you," Amelia replied, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed, perfectly aware of Vicente's watchful gaze on her every movement. "Why?" Isabella seemed genuinely surprised. "I'm not very interesting. I can't even run or play like other children can." Amelia's heart squeezed painfully. "You know, when I was little, I couldn't play much with other children either," she said softly and honestly. "I was different from them in various ways, but my mother taught me something very important. Being different never means being less valuable or less important. Your mother seems to have been a very wise person," Isabella commented with seriousness beyond her years. "She was very wise. She taught me many things about medicinal plants, about natural cures." Amelia hesitated. "Would you like me to try to help you feel better?" Isabella quickly looked at her father, who nodded almost imperceptibly, giving silent permission. "The doctors couldn't help me," said Isabella with devastating simplicity. "Do you think you really can?" "I don't know with absolute certainty. I need to be honest with you." Amelia delicately took the girl's small, warm hand. "But I would very much like to try with all my heart and knowledge." Isabella studied her for a long moment with those eyes too big and wise for a child. Then she smiled, a small but completely genuine smile full of fragile hope. "I would like that very much too. I would very much like you to try." At that exact moment something settled deeply in Amelia's chest, an iron determination, a silent but absolute promise. She was going to help this child. She had to help somehow, no matter what it cost, how long it took, or what sacrifices were necessary. Vicente accompanied Amelia back to the parlor, where Father Antonio waited patiently. The silence between them was heavy, loaded with unspoken meanings. "So," Vicente asked when they reached the parlor, his voice returning to formal and distant. Amelia looked at Vicente, then at Father Antonio, thinking about absolutely everything she was leaving behind. But honestly, it was nothing beyond constant misery and painful rejection. She thought of the girl upstairs, bravely fighting to live, fighting to simply breathe. "I accept," she said, her voice surprisingly clear and firm for someone so scared. "I will marry the Duke and care for Isabella with all my dedication." Vicente nodded once, as if he had closed an ordinary business deal. "The wedding will be held in 5 days. Father Antonio, can you make all the necessary arrangements?" "Of course, my son. I'll do everything according to custom. Amelia, you will be picked up at your aunt and uncle's house on the wedding day. Bring everything you own. After the ceremony, this will permanently be your home." "Thank you, my Lord Duke," Amelia murmured, still processing the magnitude of what she had just agreed to. "Don't thank me yet," Vicente said, his voice hard and cold again. "You still haven't proven that you can actually do what you promised to do." Actions are worth infinitely more than empty words. Amelia raised her chin with unexpected dignity, meeting his eyes directly. I promise nothing beyond trying honestly, sir, and that I will definitely do with all my being. There was a brief moment of palpable tension. Then Vicente turned abruptly. Father, please take her back. I have urgent work to do. On the way back to Vasuras, Father Antonio tried to make light conversation, but Amelia was completely lost in turbulent thoughts. In just 5 days, she would marry a completely strange man. She would leave the only life she knew, however miserable it was, and enter a totally different, unknown and frightening world. It wouldn't be a true marriage, she reminded herself firmly. Just a practical and cold arrangement. He didn't want her as a real wife. He just wanted a desperate healer for his dying daughter. And she didn't want him as a husband. She just wanted a place where she could finally belong, where she wouldn't be just a heavy burden. But as the cart swayed along the dusty road under the harsh sun, Amelia couldn't get the image of that tall, severe man out of her mind, with eyes that held so much unresolved pain, nor the image of the fragile girl who smiled at her with desperate hope. In 5 days, her life would change completely and forever. She just silently prayed she was making the absolutely right choice and not committing the biggest mistake of her entire life. The 5 days passed in a confused blur of minimal preparations. Aunt Gertrude made no party, no celebration. In fact, she barely disguised her relief at finally getting rid of the burden. Amelia spent the time gathering her few possessions: 2 patched dresses, a shawl that had been her mother's, the rosary she received at First Communion, and a small notebook where her mother had written recipes for natural remedies. It was all she possessed in the entire world. On the morning of the wedding, Amelia woke before dawn, unable to sleep. She bathed with cold water, put on her mass dress, the same faded moss green. She looked at herself in the small, cracked mirror and saw a frightened woman looking back, but beneath the fear there was also determination. The Duke's carriage arrived punctually at noon. It was elegant, pulled by 4 magnificent horses. The coachman helped Amelia climb in with her small bundle of belongings. Aunt Gertrude didn't even come out to say goodbye, just waved from the window, clearly relieved. Amelia looked back one last time as the carriage drove away. That house had been her prison for 4 long years. Now she was leaving that prison, but was she going toward freedom or toward another form of imprisonment? The wedding was held in the private chapel of the Buena Esperanza estate, a small but beautiful building painted white with a bronze bell at the top. There were no decorative flowers, no festive guests, no celebration at all, just a quick and pragmatic ceremony. Father Antonio was there along with Donna Margarida and some estate workers as required witnesses. Isabella was there too, sitting in a special chair, wrapped in blankets despite the heat, insisting on seeing her father's wedding. Vicente was dressed impeccably in a dark formal suit. Amelia wore the same faded dress. It was the only one she had. Father Antonio had insisted she wear a simple veil, who borrowed from the chapel. Vicente Albuquerque de Meneses, do you accept Amelia Novaes as your lawful wife, to love and honor her in joy and in sorrow? I do. Vicente's voice was firm, but completely devoid of emotion. His eyes were empty. Amelia Novaes, do you accept Vicente Albuquerque de Meneses as your lawful husband, to love and honor him in joy and in sorrow? Amelia looked at the man beside her, this complete stranger who would now be her husband only on paper. I do. Her voice came out stronger than expected. Then, by the authority vested in me, by God and the Holy Church, I declare you husband and wife. There was no traditional kiss, no emotional embraces. Vicente simply nodded formally to the priest and turned to Amelia. Donna Margarida will show you your room. After lunch, You can start caring for Isabella immediately." And with those cold and practical words, he left the chapel, leaving Amelia standing at the altar with the simple veil still over her face. She felt lonelier at that moment than at any other moment in her life. "Welcome to the Buena Esperanza estate," said Donna Margarida, her voice loaded with something Amelia couldn't quite identify. "I sincerely hope you know what you're doing. Much depends on you now." Amelia was led through the house to a room on the second floor. It was at least 10 times larger than the cubicle where she slept at her aunt and uncle's house. It had a canopy bed with white lace curtains, a solid jacaranda wardrobe, a dresser with a large mirror, and wide windows overlooking the well-kept gardens. "This is your room, madam," said an elderly maid named Josefina. "The Duke's room is at the end of the hall. The girl Isabella's room is next to yours." "Thank you," Amelia murmured, still processing that she was now a duchess, at least in name. Josefina hesitated before leaving, as if she wanted to say something important. "Madam, the Duke may seem very hard and cold, but he is fundamentally a good man. He's just completely lost since the First Lady died and is desperate because of the girl Isabella." "I understand perfectly," Amelia responded softly. "And Donna Margarida?" "Well, she's still in deep mourning for her daughter. Sometimes she may seem harsh or distant, but she has a good heart deep down." Amelia nodded, understanding. This house was full of unresolved pain, persistent mourning, people desperately trying to survive unimaginable losses, and now she was part of it, whether she wanted to be or not. After the silent and extremely uncomfortable lunch, where Vicente barely spoke and only watched her with obvious distrust, Amelia was finally taken to Isabella's room. The girl received her with a weak but genuine smile. "You came back. I was afraid you might have changed your mind at the last moment." "I didn't change my mind." Amelia sat carefully beside the bed. "Now I'm part of this family, and I'm going to take care of you the best way I know how." Isabella studied her with those big, wise eyes. "Are you going to be like a mother to me?" Amelia's heart squeezed. "If you want me to be, then yes, I will be." "I want that very much," Isabella whispered. "I don't remember my real mother. She died when I was born, but sometimes I miss her so much, even though I don't know what she was like." Amelia delicately took the small, warm hand. "Then let's do this. You tell me everything about how you feel, about what hurts, about everything, and I'm going to try to help you get strong and healthy. Deal?" "Deal," Isabella agreed, squeezing Amelia's hand. Amelia spent the next hours carefully examining Isabella, asking detailed questions. When did the problems start? What makes the symptoms worse? What helps, even if just a little? She watched attentively how Isabella gasped after talking too much, how her chest whistled subtly when inhaling, how there seemed to be a constant tightness making breathing difficult. "May I?" Amelia asked, gently placing her hand on the girl's chest. Isabella nodded. Amelia closed her eyes, feeling, listening to the body as her mother had taught her. There was deep inflammation, excessive heat concentrated in the lungs, muscle tension around the rib cage. "Your lungs are very inflamed inside," Amelia explained gently. "There's a lot of accumulated heat there, a lot of tension that makes breathing difficult. I'm going to need to prepare some special remedies. Do you trust me to do that?" "Yes," said Isabella simply, with an absolute trust that both frightened and honored Amelia. Amelia went down to the kitchen, where she found immediate resistance from the head cook, a robust woman named Gertrude. "The Duke doesn't like these strange things in this house," said the woman with obvious distrust. "They're not strange things, it's natural medicine. If you have any problem with that, you can speak directly with the Duke." Amelia kept her voice firm, knowing she couldn't show weakness. But Vicente wasn't available to be consulted, and Amelia had no intention of waiting. Every minute counted. She went out to the gardens and beyond, looking for what she needed with inherited knowledge. She found guaco leaves growing near an old fence. She collected fresh ginger root from the vegetable garden. She located a wild beehive and carefully collected honey and propolis. Each plant, each ingredient had a specific and proven purpose. In the kitchen, under Gertrude's watchful and suspicious gaze, Amelia prepared a thick, aromatic syrup. She also made a strong medicinal tea and a special ointment to massage on the chest, which would help open the airways. When she brought everything to Isabella, the sun was already setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "That smells very strange," commented Isabella, looking suspiciously at the dark syrup. "I know, but it's going to help a lot. I promise it doesn't taste as bad as the smell suggests." Isabella took the syrup bravely, making a dramatic face. "You completely lied. It's horrible." Amelia laughed softly. "Sorry, but things that really heal rarely taste good. It's one of nature's rules." She carefully rubbed the ointment on Isabella's chest, massaging with gentle circular movements. "This is going to help your lungs open up. It's going to make breathing easier. It may seem strange at first." "It's warm," Isabella observed. "But it's nice. It doesn't hurt. It shouldn't ever hurt. Now drink this tea before sleeping. It's going to help you rest better." Vicente appeared in the doorway. At that moment, observing silently. "What exactly are you doing?" His voice was hard, suspicious. "My job," Amelia responded calmly, without being intimidated. "I gave Isabella a syrup to reduce the inflammation in her lungs and an ointment to open the airways. Nothing here is going to harm her, only help. And are you absolutely certain of that? How can you guarantee it?" "I can't guarantee anything with total certainty," Amelia admitted honestly, "but I can guarantee that the ingredients are completely natural and safe. I've been using these same remedies for years without any negative effects." Vicente looked at his daughter. "How do you feel, Isabella?" "Better, Papa." The girl smiled. "My chest is warmer, but not as tight as before. And the tea is tasty." Vicente seemed genuinely surprised, but said nothing more. He just nodded briefly to Amelia and left the room without another word. That night, in her new and strange room, Amelia couldn't fall asleep easily. She lay there looking at the high ceiling, thinking about the strangeness of everything. She was technically a wife now, but she wasn't. She had a house, but it wasn't really hers. She had an important purpose, but what if she completely failed? And then she heard a soft, hesitant knock on the door. "Come in," she called, sitting up quickly. It was Isabella, barefoot and in a white nightgown, standing in the doorway. "Sorry to bother you. I was just afraid to sleep alone. Sometimes I wake up unable to breathe well, and I get very scared." Amelia's heart melted completely. "Come here, dear. You can stay with me tonight." Isabella came in and lay carefully on the huge bed beside Amelia. "You're not going to leave, are you? When I get better, you're not going to leave." "Me? I'm not going anywhere," Amelia promised solemnly, covering the girl with care. "I'm here now and I'm going to stay, no matter what happens. This is my home now too, even though my papa is sometimes very serious and even scary." Amelia smiled in the dark. "Even so, your father's just worried about you. When you get better, maybe he'll relax a little too." Isabella yawned sleepily. "My mama died having me. Sometimes I feel guilty about that, even though I know it wasn't my fault. Papa never said it, but I think sometimes he blames me too, without meaning to." Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. "Listen well, Isabella. You are not guilty of anything. Your father loves you more than anything in this world. I see it in his eyes when he looks at you. Do you really think so?" "I'm absolutely certain. Now sleep. Tomorrow we start the real treatment." Amelia stayed awake all night, listening to Isabella's breathing. It still whistled, was still clearly difficult, but perhaps, just perhaps, a little easier than before. It was too early to be sure, but it was a start. And on that first night at the Buena Esperanza estate, Amelia made a silent and solemn promise. She hadn't consciously chosen this life. This marriage wasn't real in the traditional sense. But Isabella was absolutely real. Her pain was real. And Amelia was going to do absolutely everything in her power to save her, no matter what it cost, no matter how long it took. She had finally found a true purpose. And for the first time in 4 long and miserable years, Amelia Novae, now Amelia de Menezes, felt that she truly belonged somewhere, that she had value, that she mattered. The following days established a careful routine. Amelia woke before dawn, prepared Isabella's fresh remedies, supervised each of the girls' meals, applied the ointments regularly, made her drink the medicinal teas, and slowly, so gradually that it was almost imperceptible day by day, Isabella began to improve. Breathing became a little easier each morning. The nighttime crises decreased in frequency and intensity. Isabella began to have more energy, to want to get out of bed, to smile more easily. But Vicente seemed determined not to notice or not to believe. Perhaps he was afraid to hope, only to see it destroyed again. He kept his distance from Amelia, spoke only what was strictly necessary, watched everything with persistent distrust. One afternoon, Amelia was in the garden picking fresh herbs when she heard voices coming from the back of the property. Curious and always seeking to learn more, she approached cautiously. A group of free workers from the estate was gathered around an elderly woman with completely white hair. The old lady was preparing something in a cauldron over an open fire. People waited patiently for their turn, some with sick children in their arms, others with visible injuries. Mother Josefa, a young woman, was saying, "My son has had a fever for 3 days. Won't the Duke call a doctor for people like us? Doctors cost money the master doesn't want to spend on us, daughter." The old woman dipped a cloth in her preparation. "But this here is going to take the fever out of the boy. Put it on his forehead and pray 3 Hail Marys. Faith also heals." Amelia watched, fascinated, completely absorbed. It was exactly what her mother did, the same type of ancestral medicine she practiced. "You there, the lady of the big house," Mother Josefa called suddenly, looking directly at Amelia. "Come here. You don't need to stay hidden in the shadows." Amelia approached, feeling the curious and some suspicious looks from the workers. "So, you're the new one the Duke brought to cure the girl Isabella," said Mother Josefa, studying Amelia intensely, with eyes that seemed to see through people. "I am, yes, ma'am. Do you know the plants, the herbs?" Mother Josefa asked directly. "My mother taught me since I was little. She knew the medicinal plants, the healing roots. She was a very respected healer in the region where we lived." The old woman smiled, revealing few teeth. "Then you have the gift. I can see it in your eyes, in the way you observe the plants. Ancestral knowledge doesn't lie." "How is the girl?" "Improving little by little. It's still too early to be absolutely certain, but she's definitely improving." Mother Josefa nodded, satisfied. The Duke doesn't believe in these things, but necessity teaches even the most stubborn. "You're going to need help, girl. Alone you won't be able to get everything you need." "What kind of help?" "There are herbs that don't grow around here, roots that are only found in specific places, tree barks that need to be harvested on the right moon." Mother Josefa approached, lowering her voice. "Come see me when you need to. I have what you don't have, and I can teach you what your mother didn't have time to teach." Amelia felt deep gratitude. "Thank you, Mother Josefa. Thank you so much. We are all daughters of the same wisdom girl. We need to help each other." The old woman touched Amelia's face gently. "But be careful. Not everyone in this house is going to like what you do. Some will try to stop you." That night, during silent dinner, Donna Margarida broke the silence. "I heard you were talking to Mother Josefa this afternoon." Amelia felt all eyes turn to her. "I was, yes. She was taking care of the sick workers." Vicente placed his fork on the table forcefully. Mother Josefa is the worker's healer. I don't want you associating with those practices in front of everyone. What you do with Isabella is already controversial enough, with all due respect, sir. Amelia kept her voice calm. Mother Josefa has valuable knowledge. She can teach me things I don't know. If I really want to help Isabella, I need to learn everything I can. I don't need my wife, even if only on paper, to be seen as a witch or plantation healer, Vicente said coldly. That tarnishes the family's reputation. Then perhaps you should have thought of that before bringing me here, Amelia responded, surprised by her own courage. You brought me precisely because of those knowledge you now call shameful. The silence that followed was deafening. Vicente stared at her with hard eyes, and Amelia thought perhaps she had gone too far. But then he simply stood up from the table. Do what you think. Necessary to cure my daughter, but be discreet. I don't want scandals. And he left the room with heavy steps. Donna Margarida looked at Amelia with an expression mixing respect and concern. You're brave, girl, but be careful not to provoke too much. Vicente is proud, and proud men can be dangerous when they feel challenged. Amelia nodded, but inside she felt something new growing. She was no longer the submissive girl who accepted everything in silence. Here in this house she had purpose, and she wouldn't let male pride prevent her from doing what was right. The weeks passed, and Isabella's improvement became undeniable, even to the most skeptical. The girl could now stay out of bed for hours. She played in the garden under careful supervision, laughed more frequently. The persistent cough had decreased dramatically, and the nighttime fevers were rare. The estate workers began to look at Amelia with new respect. Some came discreetly to ask for advice for their own health problems or those of family members. Amelia attended to them whenever she could, preparing simple remedies, giving guidance based on what her mother had taught her. Vicente watched everything from afar, still maintaining emotional and physical distance. But Amelia noticed that he now looked at her differently, with something that was no longer just distrust. There was curiosity there, perhaps even reluctant admiration. One afternoon, while Amelia was in the garden with Isabella, teaching the girl about medicinal plants, Vicente approached unexpectedly. Isabella, go ask Josefina to prepare your snack, he said softly. The girl looked between her father and Amelia, clearly perceiving that he wanted to speak alone. She obeyed, but not without first squeezing Amelia's hand reassuringly. When they were alone, Vicente was silent for a long moment, as if searching for the right words. Finally he said, the doctors came back yesterday, those from Rio de Janeiro who had examined Isabella before. Amelia felt her heart race. And what did they say? They're astonished. They said the transformation is extraordinary, almost impossible. Vicente looked directly at her for the first time with something beyond coldness. They said it was a miracle. It wasn't a miracle. It was ancestral knowledge applied correctly, with dedication. Vicente ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Amelia was learning to recognize as a sign that he was uncomfortable. I owe you an apology. I was unfair to you from the beginning. I treated you as a fraud, as a charlatan, when in truth you saved my daughter. Amelia was surprised. She never expected to hear those words from him. You were protecting your daughter. Any father would do the same. There's no need for apologies. Yes, there is. Vicente took a step closer. You came to this house as a stranger. You were treated with distrust and coldness, and yet you dedicated yourself completely to Isabella. You did more for her than any expensive doctor could, and I treated you like a servant, not like the wife you technically are. It's a marriage of convenience, sir. We both know that. I didn't expect to be treated like a real wife. Perhaps you should expect it, Vicente said softly. You live in this house. You carry my name. You care for my daughter as if she were your own. You deserve respect, and I haven't been offering that adequately. Amelia didn't know what to say. This severe and distant man was showing himself vulnerable for the first time, and she didn't know how to react. "Isabella loves you," Vicente continued. "She smiles more in 1 month with you than she smiled in an entire year. You gave her not only health, but also joy. You gave her a mother, something she never had." Tears burned in Amelia's eyes. "She also gave me something I never had. A place where I belong, where I'm valued, where I'm good for something beyond hard work." Vicente studied her for a long moment. "You are extraordinary, Amelia, and I was too blind to see that from the beginning." Before Amelia could respond, Isabella came running back through the garden, laughing and chasing a butterfly. "Look!" she shouted, completely out of breath but happy. "I've never seen such a beautiful butterfly." Father and stepmother watched her together, side by side, for the first time united by their shared love for that miraculous child. Things changed subtly after that conversation. Vicente began joining them for meals more regularly. He started asking Amelia about her day, about Isabella's treatments, about the workers she was helping. He still maintained some formality, but the absolute coldness had melted. Amelia caught herself noticing details about him she hadn't perceived before. How his eyes softened when he looked at Isabella. How he had strong, but surprisingly gentle, hands. How his voice became deeper when he was tired. How he carried the weight of immeasurable responsibilities on his broad shoulders. And sometimes, when their gazes accidentally met across the dinner table, Amelia felt something strange stir inside her chest, something she shouldn't be feeling for a husband who wasn't really a husband. "Don't be foolish," she scolded herself. "He still loves his first wife. You're just a convenience, a healer for his daughter. Don't confuse gratitude with anything else." But at night, lying in her big, empty bed, Amelia caught herself thinking about him more than she should. Thinking about what it would be like if this marriage were real, if he looked at her with love, and not just reluctant respect. Months passed. Isabella was completely transformed. She ran through the gardens, played with other children from the estate, ate with voracious appetite. She still needed care, regular medicinal teas, but the threat of death had completely passed. Vicente hired a private tutor for Isabella, and Amelia insisted on participating in the lessons too. She knew how to read and write, but she wanted to learn more, to expand her knowledge beyond herbs and plants. The teacher, an elderly man named Professor Augusto, was impressed by Amelia's intelligence. "You have a sharp mind, Donna Amelia. You learn faster than many men I've had as students." Amelia discovered a deep love for books. She spent hours in Vicente's library reading about history, geography, sciences. Vicente found her there one night, completely absorbed in a book about European botany. "Did you find something interesting?" he asked, making her jump with fright. "Sorry, I didn't hear you come in." Amelia quickly closed the book. "I was just reading about plants we don't have here in Brazil." "Please continue reading." Vicente sat in a nearby armchair. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important." Amelia felt apprehension. "Tell me, sir." Vicente hesitated, which was rare for him. "Isabella is completely cured. The doctors confirmed it. There's no more danger to her life." "That's wonderful." Amelia smiled genuinely. "I'm so happy." "Yes, it's wonderful." Vicente leaned forward. "But that means the original purpose of our agreement has been fulfilled. You completely fulfilled your part. If you wish, I can arrange an annulment of the marriage. I can give you a generous sum of money, a house, complete independence. You would be free to live your own life." The words hit Amelia like a bucket of ice water. He was offering her freedom. She should be happy, relieved, but all she felt was a deep pain in her chest. "Is that what you want?" she asked, barely managing to keep her voice steady. "It's not about what I want, it's about what's fair." Vicente avoided her eyes. "You didn't choose this marriage freely. It was a transaction, a cold agreement. Now that you've fulfilled your part, you shouldn't feel trapped here. And Isabella? Amelia asked. How am I going to explain to her that I'm leaving? Isabella will understand eventually. Children are resilient. Amelia stood up, feeling anger growing inside her. Resilient? She calls me mother. She sleeps in my room when she has nightmares. She tells me her secrets. And you think she's just going to get over my leaving, as if I were just any servant being dismissed? Vicente also stood, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't mean it that way. I just thought you would like to have a choice. Well, know that I choose to stay. Amelia faced him directly. This is my home now. Isabella is my daughter, in everything except blood. And if you want to get rid of me, you're going to have to expel me directly, because I'm not leaving voluntarily. There was tense silence. Then Vicente said softly, I don't want you to leave, Amelia. Then why did you offer? Why are you trying to push me away? Because I feel I'm being unfair to you. Vicente ran his hand over his face, a gesture of frustration Amelia knew well. You deserve a real marriage, true love, children of your own, not a farce where you sleep alone while your husband keeps his distance. Amelia felt her heart race. And what if I tell you I don't care about that? What if I say I'm happy exactly the way things are? You say that now, but what about 5 years from now, 10 years? Won't you resent having wasted your youth in an empty marriage? Who said it's empty? Amelia took a step closer. I have a home. I have a daughter I love. I have purpose. I have respect. It's more than many women in real marriages can say. Vicente looked at her intensely, and Amelia saw something new in his eyes, something that made her heart beat even faster. Do you really want to stay, even knowing that I still love Clarice? I know, Amelia said softly. I never asked you to stop loving her. I never asked to take her place. I just want my own place in this house. Beside her, not replacing her. How can you be so understanding? How can you so easily accept being second choice? Because I understand loss, Vicente. Amelia held his hand impulsively, surprising them both. I lost my mother. I lost my father. I was rejected by everyone who should love me. I know exactly what it's like to carry grief and pain. I'm not going to punish you for feeling the same. Vicente looked at their joined hands and for the first time didn't pull away. His fingers slowly intertwined with hers. You are an extraordinary woman, Amelia de Menezes. Much better than I deserve. Let me decide what you deserve. They stayed like that for a long moment, hands intertwined in the silence of the library, surrounded by books and by the soft light of candles. Something had fundamentally changed between them, although neither could name exactly what. Finally, Vicente said, I will respect your decision to stay, but I will also strive to make this a house where you are truly happy, not merely tolerated. I'm already happy here, Vicente. Amelia smiled softly, using his name for the first time, happier than I ever imagined I could be. Life at the Buena Esperanza estate established a new rhythm. Amelia continued caring for Isabella, but now also took a more active role in running the house. She supervised the servants, planned dinners when they received visitors, organized the library and the medicinal garden she was cultivating. Vicente began including her in conversations about the estate, asking her opinion on decisions. He discovered that Amelia had a sharp mind for numbers and organization, skills she had never had the chance to develop before. The estate workers adored her. Amelia continued treating their health problems discreetly, and productivity had increased significantly since the workers were healthier and better cared for. You should charge for your services, Vicente commented one day during dinner. Doctors charge fortunes for doing much less than you do. I don't need money, Amelia said simply. Those people don't have money to pay. If I can help for free, why? Wouldn't I? You have a heart too generous for this cruel world, Vicente said. But there was admiration in his voice. Or perhaps the world is cruel because many hearts aren't generous enough? Dona Margarida, who was dining with them, laughed softly. She leaves you without an answer, Vicente. It's the first time I've seen that happen. Vicente smiled, a rare expression that completely transformed his severe face. Amelia has that effect on me with increasing frequency. Amelia felt her face warm with the indirect compliment. Isabella, sitting beside her, squeezed her hand under the table and whispered, "Papa is," smiling more now. "It's because of you." The seasons changed, and with them the estate. The coffee harvest was abundant, the best in years. Vicente attributed part of the success to Amelia, who had suggested using natural compounds to strengthen the plants and combat pests without expensive chemicals. During the harvest festival, a tradition at the estate, Amelia was helping serve food when one of the oldest workers, a woman named Benedicta, approached. "My Lady Duchess, may I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Benedicta, and please you can just call me Amelia." They moved away from the bustle of the festival. Benedicta looked nervously around before speaking. "My daughter has a serious problem. She's expecting a baby, but the father won't take responsibility. He's the son of a neighboring landowner, a married man. We're afraid of what he might do if he finds out she's going to have the child." Amelia felt anger boiling. Did he force her? Not exactly, but he made promises he had no intention of keeping. And now she's alone and very afraid. Where is she? Hiding in an abandoned house at the edge of the estate. She can't go home because her father will throw her out. She's 4 months along and starting to show. Amelia thought quickly. "Bring her to the big house. We can arrange a room for her in the back. She can work in the kitchen during her pregnancy, and after the baby is born, we'll see what to do." "You would do that?" Benedicta had tears in her eyes. "But the Duke—" "I'll talk to the Duke," Amelia said firmly. "Bring your daughter tonight." Later, when the party ended and they were preparing for bed, Amelia sought out Vicente in his study. He was reviewing account books by lamplight. "Vicente, I need to talk to you about something important." He raised his eyes, noting her serious expression. "What happened?" Amelia told the whole story, carefully watching his reactions. When she finished, Vicente was silent for a long moment. "You already promised her shelter without consulting me first," he said finally. "I did." Amelia raised her chin defiantly. "If that's a problem, we can discuss it, but I'm not going back on my promise." To her surprise, Vicente smiled. "I'm not criticizing, Amelia. I'm impressed. You act like the true lady of this house, making decisions of compassion without hesitation. So I can give her shelter?" "You can. And I'm also going to find out who the responsible father is. If it's who I suspect, I'm going to have serious words with him." Amelia felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Vicente. That means so much to me. You have a heart that can't see suffering without trying to relieve it. It's one of the things I most admire about you." Vicente stood up, approaching her. "May I ask something personal?" "Of course. Are you happy here?" "Truly happy. Not just saying that out of obligation," Amelia thought, carefully before responding. "I'm happier than I ever imagined possible. I have purpose. I have people I care about and who care about me. I have the freedom to use my knowledge to help others. Yes, Vicente, I am genuinely happy, even in a marriage that isn't a real marriage." Amelia felt her heart race. "What are you really asking, Vicente?" He hesitated, seeming to struggle with the words. "In recent months I've noticed something. When you enter a room, the atmosphere transforms. When you smile at Isabella, my heart warms. When I see you helping the workers, I feel pride. And when you're not around, the house seems empty." Amelia could barely breathe. "Continue." "What I'm saying very inadequately is that you've become essential to this house, to Isabella, and to me." Vicente took her hand. "I know our marriage started as a cold transaction, But perhaps it doesn't need to continue that way. Perhaps we could transform it into something real. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. Are you sure? Aren't you saying this out of gratitude or obligation? I'm sure. It didn't happen suddenly. It was gradual, so slow I almost didn't notice. But now I can't imagine this. How's this life without you in it? Vicente touched her face gently. Amelia, I would like to try to make this marriage real, if you want that too. Amelia smiled through her tears. I want that. I want that very much. Vicente pulled her into an embrace, and for the first time since they married, Amelia allowed herself to completely relax in his arms. She felt safe, wanted, loved. But there's something you need to know, Vicente said softly. I still love Clarice. I will always love her in a way. She was my first love, the mother of my daughter. I know, and I'm not asking you to stop loving her. Amelia looked at him. The human heart is big enough to love more than one person in different ways. You can honor her memory and still build something new with me. How did you become so wise? Vicente kissed her forehead softly. Pain teaches wisdom, and I had a lot of pain to learn from. They remained embraced for a long moment, while the candles burned low and the estate slept around them. It was a new beginning, built on mutual respect, admiration, and shared compassion. When Amelia finally returned to her room, she found Isabella sitting on her bed, clearly waiting for her. Where were you? I was worried. Talking to your father. Amelia sat beside her. And I have wonderful news. Isabella studied her carefully. You're going to stay married for real now, not just pretending. Amelia blinked in surprise. You knew we were pretending? Of course I knew. I'm not stupid. Isabella crossed her little arms. You sleep in separate rooms. You never kiss. You barely talk. But I prayed every night for that to change. Why? Because I wanted a real family. Isabella took Amelia's hand. I wanted you to be my real mother and for Papa to be really happy. And now my prayer was answered. Amelia hugged the girl tightly. You are a very special child, Isabella, and yes, your prayer was answered. Can I keep calling you mother? You always can. Amelia kissed the top of her head, because that's what I am, your mother in all the ways that matter. Things changed gradually, but definitely after that night. Vicente began courting Amelia properly, as he should have from the beginning. He took her for walks around the estate. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. They dined together after Isabella went to sleep. A month later, on an especially starry night, Vicente took Amelia to a lookout point overlooking the entire property. The coffee fields stretched to the horizon, bathed in the silvery light of the full moon. It's beautiful, Amelia whispered, amazed. You are beautiful, Vicente corrected, looking at her instead of the view, inside and out. I don't know how I got so lucky to have you enter my life. Lucky? Amelia laughed softly. You were desperate and I had no choices. It's not exactly a romantic fairy tale. Perhaps the best fairy tales are the ones that don't seem like fairy tales at the beginning. Vicente pulled her closer. Amelia, I love you. I know it's early. I know we still have a lot to build, but I can't keep this inside me any longer. Tears ran freely down Amelia's face. I love you too. I think I started loving you long before I admitted it to myself. And then Vicente kissed her, soft and eternal, under the stars and full moon. It was their first kiss, and it was perfect in its honest simplicity. When they separated, both were smiling. Amelia touched his face gently. I want you to know that I don't mind that you still keep a place for Clarice in your heart. She gave you Isabella. She will always be part of this family. You are an extraordinary woman, Amelia de Menezes. Extraordinary. That night, for the first time, Amelia didn't sleep alone. Vicente took her to his room, where they made love for the first time, with tenderness and passion mixed together. It was a union not just of bodies, but of souls that had found healing in each other. The following months were the happiest of Amelia's life. The marriage transformed into a true partnership, into genuine love. Vicente was no longer the cold and distant man from the beginning. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. Benedicta's daughter, a young woman named Rosa, gave birth to a healthy boy. Amelia was present at the birth, using all the knowledge her mother had taught her. It was a difficult birth, but mother and baby survived. Vicente kept his word. He confronted the neighboring landowner responsible, and although the man didn't publicly acknowledge the child, he was forced to pay a substantial sum for the baby's support. Rosa remained working at the estate, and her son grew healthy under Amelia's care. Amelia's reputation as a healer spread throughout the region. People came from neighboring estates seeking her remedies and advice. Some from high society turned up their noses, considering it inappropriate for a duchess to practice folk medicine. But Amelia didn't care about gossip. She had Vicente's full support, Isabella's love, and the workers' respect. It was more than many women of her position could say. One day, almost a year after the wedding, Amelia realized her monthly cycles were late. Initially, she thought it was irregular, but when the morning sickness began, she knew. She was pregnant. She was going to have Vicente's child. The news filled her with joy and terror simultaneously. Joy because she desperately wanted to have children. Terror because she knew pregnancy could be dangerous, especially for mixed-race women in a society that saw them as inferior. She sought out Mother Josefa before telling Vicente, "I need to be sure, and I need guidance." The old healer examined her carefully, using ancient and reliable methods. "You are pregnant, yes. About 6 weeks." Mother Josefa smiled. "And it's going to be a healthy pregnancy, I can feel it. Are you sure? I've been doing this for over 50 years, girl." "I'm sure." Mother Josefa took Amelia's hands. "But you need to take good care of yourself. Rest when necessary, eat right. Don't stress about the gossip and judgments of important people." That night, during dinner, Amelia was too nervous to eat properly. Vicente noticed immediately. "Are you all right? You seem worried about something." Isabella was also watching her with curious eyes. "You have your forehead wrinkled. Are you sick?" "I'm not sick." Amelia took a deep breath. "Actually, I have news to share. Very important news." Vicente set his fork on the table, giving her his full attention. "What is it?" "I'm expecting a baby. We're going to have a child." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Amelia anxiously watched Vicente's face, trying to decipher his reaction. Then slowly, a huge smile spread across his face. "A baby." Vicente stood quickly, coming to her and kneeling beside her chair. "Amelia, that's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Really? Are you happy?" Amelia felt tears of relief. "Happy? I'm over the moon." Vicente hugged her carefully, as if she were too fragile. "A child of ours, Amelia, ours. I'm going to have a little brother," Isabella shouted excitedly, jumping from her chair. "Or a little sister. Can I choose the name?" Both laughed. "We'll see when the baby is born," Vicente said, affectionately messing up his daughter's hair. "But yes, you're going to have a brother or sister." Dona Margarida, who had been watching the scene in silence, discreetly wiped away a tear. "What a wonderful blessing. Clarice would be happy knowing the family is growing." The mention of Clarice could have been uncomfortable, but Amelia just smiled. "I'm sure she's watching from somewhere and smiling." Vicente looked at Amelia with deep love. "You need to start resting more. No heavy work. I'm going to hire more servants to help. I'm pregnant, not sick," Amelia protested gently. "But I promise I'll take good care of myself." The following months were of intense preparation. Vicente transformed one of the rooms near theirs into a nursery, importing the best cradle from Rio de Janeiro. Isabella insisted on participating in everything, choosing colors, decorations, helping to sew tiny clothes. Amelia's belly grew, and with it, her love for the life she carried. She continued caring for people, but reduced her pace as Vicente insisted. She spent more time teaching Isabella about medicinal plants, preparing the girl to eventually carry on the ancestral knowledge. Labor began one pre-dawn during the new moon. Amelia woke with regular contractions and calmly woke Vicente. "It's time. The baby is coming." Vicente went into complete panic, shouting for servants, wanting to call doctors from the city. Amelia had to physically calm him. "Vicente, breathe. Everything is fine. It's a natural process. Mother Josefa is on her way. Dona Margarida is here. I know what to do. What if something goes wrong? What if you need help I can't give? Then you'll trust me and the women who know what to do." Amelia kissed him softly, despite the painful contraction. "Now go stay with Isabella. She'll be scared." The labor lasted 12 long and difficult hours. Mother Josefa commanded everything with decades of expertise. Dona Margarida helped, holding Amelia's hand, applying cold cloths to her forehead. Vicente was outside with Isabella, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. When the sun began to set, the strong cry of a baby finally echoed through the house. A healthy boy with powerful lungs. "It's a boy." Dona Margarida opened the door shouting, "A beautiful boy!" Vicente rushed in, finding Amelia exhausted but smiling, holding the newborn wrapped in white blankets. "Vicente, come meet your son." Vicente approached with reverence, looking at the red, wrinkled little face. "He's perfect, absolutely perfect. Do you want to hold him?" With trembling hands, Vicente took the baby. Tears ran freely down his face. "Welcome to the world, my son. Your father loves you more than words can express." Isabella came running in. "Can I see my baby brother?" Amelia beckoned her closer. "Come meet your brother, Isabella." The girl looked in wonder at the baby. "He's so tiny. What are we going to call him?" Vicente and Amelia looked at each other. They had discussed names for months. "Gabriel," they said together, smiling. "Gabriel Albuquerque de Menezes," Vicente announced formally, "heir to the Buena Esperanza estate and living proof that miracles exist." That night, when everyone finally rested, Vicente lay carefully beside Amelia. "You were extraordinary today. So strong, so brave. I had good motivation. I promised I would stay here with you." Amelia was exhausted, but happy, and I always keep my promises. Vicente kissed her tenderly. "You know, when Father Antonio suggested this marriage, I thought he was completely crazy. Marry a stranger out of desperation. And now I know it was the hand of God. You didn't just save Isabella. You saved me too. You pulled me out of the darkness of grief, taught me to live again. You gave me love I thought I would never have again. And now you've given me this beautiful son." Amelia smiled, tired. "So it was a good deal in the end? The best deal of my entire life." Vicente embraced her carefully. "I love you, Amelia, more than I thought possible to love someone again. And I love you. I will always love you." In the cradle beside the bed, Gabriel made a small noise. Amelia moved to pick him up, but Vicente stopped her. "Rest. I'll take care of him tonight." Amelia watched her husband take the newborn with infinite tenderness, gently rocking him. Her heart overflowed with love and gratitude. She thought about everything she had been through, the family's rejection, the years of misery at her aunt and uncle's house, the arranged marriage with a strange man, and how all of that had brought her to exactly where she needed to be. Sometimes the most difficult paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes being forgotten by the world allows you to be found by the right person. And sometimes the truest love is born from the most improbable beginnings. Amelia closed her eyes, hearing Vicente softly humming to Gabriel, knowing that Isabella slept safely in the next room. feeling the deep peace of finally belonging. This was her family, this was her home, this was her story, and what a beautiful story it was. If you enjoyed this emotional story of love, overcoming and second chances, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments what your favorite moment was. Do you believe true love can be born from the most difficult circumstances? Share your opinion and your own stories of overcoming.